Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful, fuzzy, and whimsical co-host, a Joe.
Instead of good morning, good night, everyone.
Indeed, because we now record these at night, or el noche, as the Spanish say.
Wow, look at that. Some Spanish college Spanish retained in your mind.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the only I know. El noche. Um, I know donde está la biblioteca because it's a meme, and that's probably about it.
No
And
curse
that's all the
words.
Spanish. No, no, of course. Joe. I'm a good Christian boy. Obviously, absolutely no curse words whatsoever. None. None. Nada. Nuh-uh.
We had
Um,
Chinese kids in our Chinese class. Tell about like ridiculous. Like why did the Chinese kids get to take Chinese? They were fluent in it. Made no sense. Anyway, they taught us all the curse words and we would like say them under our breath and stuff like that. And the one time the teacher caught us and she flipped out, dude. Like I wish you could have met my Chinese teacher. We called her the dictator.
oh my God. I'm sure. Did you call her that to her face?
Oh God, no! She would have murdered us.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. I was like, that would be. I can't imagine a single. Actually, I can't imagine one teacher that would be okay with that. But we're not here to talk. I'm not here to talk about teachers. We are here. We are here to talk about two, three things. Three, maybe four,
Nerdy
if
stuff.
it just happened. Yeah, exactly. Nerdy stuff. So last week we talked about a movie, Your Name. If you want to go see that, go check out last week's episode. That was episode 11. We're now on episode 12. Joe, we're in the double digits, and we've been in the double digits for over a year now because time. But it still feels great to say we're almost in the teen years, Joe. Our podcast, it's growing up so fast. It's growing up so
Joe,
fast.
we're gonna be like
Yeah.
40, and we're gonna be on episode like 400 and something, and we're gonna be like, in this episode, we celebrate the birth of Joe's son. Bring him
My
on the
God.
podcast. Goo goo gaga.
Smoking a cigar. He's got sunglasses on, beer in one hand, like a nice Budweiser in the left, a
Oh, he takes after his
cigarette in the
mother.
right. Exactly, exactly. And the best part is, we'll say it's Joe's baby, but we'll never specify, and we'll both act the
Exactly.
same way towards it.
I'm happy you picked
That
up on that.
Yep, yep. Always. Again, Joe, remember, we're just one person doing two different voices. That's this entire podcast.
Could you imagine that? That what a feat! Like that would be amazing.
It would, because honestly, I think it'd be either either I or the royal we, in this case, not referring to I and God, but you and I.
Oh, we're getting
So
deep.
the royal we
Okay.
is just really good at like speaking in different voices, or their editing is on point. Um, I don't know which would be more impressive, but that'd be really funny. I like to see if anyone ever did fan art of us, just and they knew us, just make us an amalgam, just combine us together as just one cohesive Joe, which hasn't been confirmed that we're not, but just imagine we're two separate people and then combine us, even if you don't know what you look like. That's the challenge. I want you to draw each of us and be like, which one's the loud one and which one's the one who drinks coffee. Those are our two determining factors. And then draw us separately with those distinctions and what you've heard of us on the podcast, and then use polymerization from your old Yu-Gi-Oh decks. It's just sitting there gathering dust. Brick it out. Use it once in a while. Um, See, I told you, we just so much nerdy stuff. It's just gonna come flowing on out.
It's like our
Um,
digressions don't even digress to other things. They just digress along the path of nerdier stuff.
it's the path of least resistance for as far as the stuff that we know. So it's just oh, does it fall into some nerd camp? It's it's old anime trading card game. That's perfectly in line with everything else that we're going to be talking about. It fits in. It's perfect. Um, all right. Well, enough digressing. Joe,
Let's start it
tell us a
off.
little bit. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what we are going to be talking about first.
Oh, we're talking about the Iron Giant, baby, by Brad Bird. Oh my goodness, Joe. Dude, I watched this last night and I can't believe I was crying over a metal man. It was
It's so
it's so
good.
good. It's so good. And like I remember this was always my go-to movie when I was younger and back when you had to rent VHSs
Oh
back
my
in the day.
god,
Did you have like
the ancient
a
times.
VHS shop near you where you would go rent them?
Um, I don't remember a VHS shop when I was younger. Like obviously there were Blockbusters. We're old enough to have lived to see a Blockbuster. I've been inside a Blockbuster a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure they were all like a town or two over. Like
Okay.
my town never had a Blockbuster, like a video store. I
Hmm.
remember seeing like Netflix. Like, remember when Netflix was like a DVD rental
Delivery.
service sort of
Yeah,
thing?
delivery
Yeah,
service. That started off.
I remember seeing the boxes for those outside of like my local grocery stores, and people would use those all the time. And I was like, that looks kind of cool, but I never ended up actually getting like a movie through them or whatever.
Okay, okay. Yeah, no. So for me, Friday nights were always we went to the movie store down the street, and you could it was like rent like three movies for $5 or something like that. And I always got the Iron Giant. Like it was my favorite. I loved everything about it. I thought it was so cool, and just watching it last night. Oh my God, all the nostalgia just came rushing to me. I enjoyed every moment. I forgot how much I actually loved it. It's been years since I sat down and watched it,
Hmm.
and there's just I could talk about hours and hours and hours about this movie, but at the end of the day, this thing made me cry, man. I was bawling my eyes out in my living room watching this, and I was not
Was there your
prepared for
family
that.
around?
No, no, everybody else was asleep. It was just me. Yeah, it
Just
was an
Joe
experience.
sitting in the living room, just like sipping a cup of Joe, just crying himself wrapped in a blanket. Just oh my god, it's so beautiful.
It was an alcoholic cup of Joe, actually.
Ah, very nice, very good.
That's the after
Um,
hours cup of Joe channel.
yeah, exactly. Dude, when we make it big, like when we make it big, and like in a month's time we get like a million subscribers or
When
something.
we're on Ellen.
Um, when we're on Ellen, we're gonna launch the Cup of Joe After Hours show, and that's where we're really like. If you think this is low effort now, boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're gonna be like in like wife beaters that are stained and our boxers, and we're just gonna be sitting in lazy boys and alcoholic beverages in each of our hands, all of them. Like I'm talking, we're double fisting alcoholic beverages, and we're just gonna have a microphone between us. This of course, because this is of course when we make it big and we're on Ellen. Of course, we'll have our own mansion and studio.
Private studio, yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, so double fisting alcoholic beverages, and then we're just gonna be like talking real sluggishly over the same nerdy stuff that we love, but it will be much less understandable and also much more burp filled. So you have that to look forward to, everyone. If we ever make it to Ellen, as what I'll say is like the when we make it big.
That's the benchmark.
Yeah, exactly. When we're on Ellen, then we know we've made it. Um, yeah, so this movie for me, it's funny because this movie, I really, really love this movie as well, but I never saw it when I was a kid, kind of like you, or not kind of like you because you saw it as a kid. I did not. You showed me this movie when we met in
Yep.
freshman year of college, and it was something that I was always kind of like interested in. I had heard of it, and I was on the fringe of it, and so I thought to myself, I'm like, this seems like a pretty cool movie. Maybe I should watch this movie. And then you came along and said, hey, I think we should watch this movie in the, I think it was the Blue Lounge that we watched it in. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go and I watch the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, this is beautiful. And no, it's not just because it has Superman comics in it and references to Action Comics. It's not just that, although I really like that. Um, and I do agree, this is probably one of, if not the best, and I'm doing finger quotes here, everyone, Superman stories ever told. The finger quotes, the finger quotes are sort
Love
of
it. I
legit.
absolutely love it.
Yeah, well, because it's so good, but it's also got other elements of other characters like Spider-Man stuff that I'll get into in a little bit. But you showed me this movie, and I love it, and it makes up part of the trifecta of what I believe to be my three favorite animated films.
Ooh.
Um, yeah,
Ooh.
which I don't know if I should talk about. If I should, well, obviously one is the Iron Giant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'll mention the other two because they're two films that I want to get to on this podcast at some
Yeah,
point.
let's hear them.
I okay, so Iron Giant, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. It's wonderful. Joe's getting excited. And then another animated film that you showed me when I got to college, Treasure Planet.
Oh,
And so,
yes.
yeah. So those three movies, and I believe they all came out 99, 2001, and 2002, respectively, for all of those.
Yeah, I believe that's
Um,
it.
yeah, I don't normally know that off the top of my head, everyone. I just looked it up yesterday because I was thinking about this. Um, I'm like, I'm just a storage facility for all movie dates and things like that. But so those are the three animated films that I think make up my trifecta favorite animated films of all time. Um, and they're just incredible. But today we're talking about Iron Giant, and much like you, I didn't cry, but I did get very emotional while watching this movie. Um, but real quick, Joe, I want you to give me a a abridged, as fast as you possibly can, synopsis of the story. That way, we're not explaining things like Your Name for an hour.
Invader from outer space lands in the ocean. Turns out to be a giant metal robot from outer space. Hides in the woods of Maine. Little boy from Maine finds it in the woods, saves its life, becomes friends. They're homies. The government's involved. A really big asshole from the government's like, I gotta find the robot. The kid puts Turbo Lax in his milkshake, makes him poop a lot. There's a really cool like emo edgy dude who's like an artist who I absolutely love, and he becomes like the kid's friends. The kid teaches the robot between good and evil, between superheroes and supervillains, and tells him that you choose who you want to be, which is it hits. That really hits, and
It really hits.
and then the government gets involved. I don't want to. Do you want me to say the end? I mean, or do we want to?
We'll build up to it. We'll go
Yeah,
through
the
different
ending's
aspects of it.
just too intense. I
It
can't.
is.
You got to give it more justice.
You really do. But yeah, so like just going down the list of things that I have on this sheet in front of me, it actually has like a relatively scary opening,
Oh
and
yeah.
I found that kind of cool because I haven't seen this since we saw it together in freshman year, so it's been 3 years, something like that. Um, and watching it again, I noticed two things. I was like, "Oh, this is actually kind of scary." Like if I was a little kid, I'd be like, "Oh, whoa, what's happening here?" It's like a creepy sort of vibe. Um, and whatchamacallit, the when the giant stands up, I was just like, "Whoa, that guy's really big." And then his head turns towards you, and then I noticed the second thing I noticed, other than it was scary, was the Iron Giant looks suspiciously similar to the Stone Guardians in Atlantis, and also the seafaring guy reminds, like the way he's animated reminds me a whole lot also of Atlantis. And I feel like the animation styles and concepts in these movies are part of the reason why they're part of like the trifecta for me of why I love them so much, is because there's a lot of strange similarities that are found between them.
I completely agree with you. For a second, I thought maybe there was a chance that the Atlantis director was the same one as as the Iron Giant, but I am wrong. But no, I completely agree with you. I also think that the robot reminds me a little bit of the robots from uh, Castle in the Sky, a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not
Yes, I was
as
thinking about that.
like the Castle in the Sky ones are nowhere near as big, but definitely a similar body shape and
Mhm.
just setup. And yeah, that opening scene really sets the tone, and it gets you interested. Like, what the heck? Like, you see Sputnik, so you get an idea of like, oh, like what's this timeline gonna be? Like Sputnik's flying in space, and this thing just comes crashing down. And yeah, I just love the intense opening.
Yeah, it's real nice. It's very good at setting the tone, sort of a thing. And then we meet Hogarth Hughes, which that's I mean, I like the alliteration that you got going on. It's very, Peter Parker, Bruce
Hmm.
Banner, that sort of a thing. It's very comic book esque in that sense. Um,
But who
but also,
names their kid Hogarth?
I
I've
know,
never heard anyone name Hogarth.
I know, I don't know what the name Hogarth. We probably should have. I don't care enough to look it up. But I was also just like, what's the name Hogarth? Like, I'm not bashing on it, but it is a very
Even
strange
Ted
name.
or whatever his name from the government literally is like Hogarth.
Kent.
Who? Kent, that's his name. Kent.
Joe,
He's like who the
I
hell?
memorized this douche nozzle's name because I had so much I wanted to say about him. Kent Mansley, the bureaucratic villain of this movie, who I want to swirly 1,000 times.
He's such a good bad character.
He is. He's an incredible bad character, but man, I want to grab his elongated face and just shove it into a toilet.
You don't like the football head, chiseled jaw, really flowy hair. Ted Mansley, work for the government.
And like he pulled out his ID thing, and it's just like he does the thing where he pulls out ID, flips it open, talks really fast, flips it closed, and then no one understands what the hell is going on. But the did you catch what was the company or the what am I trying to say? The thing that he worked for, because the initials were
Okay.
BUP.
See, I saw that as well, and I think it was when he first showed up at the electric power plant, and the one electric guy's like, what agency do you work for again? And he's like, it doesn't matter. One of the
I'm
ones for
not
the
at
government.
liberty. I'm not at liberty to divulge any information to you, bumbling town folk, about the government facility that I work for.
No, but
Obviously,
I
it's
didn't
like
see what it actually said. But I was thinking about going back and looking at it, but then at the end of the movie, I was just in shambles, and I just wanted to go
right.
to bed.
Oh, I need to go to bed. You inchworm your way out of the living room into your bedroom, and then you just fall asleep on the floor.
I do a belly flop onto the bed and then just cocoon myself.
Top notch. That's the way we do it here. Yeah. So moving on to Kent Mansley, you got him coming in, and he's trying to figure stuff out. Also, the scene where Hogarth kind of like runs out to see what has just it's been like running amok in the woods. The Iron Giant, of course. What else would I be talking about? Flying car from
Beavers.
Aladdin? No. Or beavers. Beavers on a flying carpet. Ooh,
Wow, it sounds like a great band name. Beavers on a flying carpet.
that's probably not going to sync up perfectly. But just know that I timed that perfectly on my end, everyone. Thank you. So yeah, Hogarth like he goes out to the power plant. He's like, I hear some footsteps are rumbling around. What's going on out here? And I love also the strangeness of. I mean, I guess he does it because he wants to protect himself, but how he brings a gun with him, and then later he's like, guns kill people. I guess he doesn't say guns are bad, but he's just sort of like, guns are kind of a bad thing, and he has one in the beginning. I was like, that's kind of funny. Um, but the more funny thing I think is that this entire power plant, it looks like a perfectly realistic power plant, and the Iron Giant is getting wrecked by it. All the electricity is hitting him, and then Hogarth is like, "Oh man, I should save him." He sounds like he's like a dying puppy or something, and he goes over, and there's just a massive on-off switch.
That it was such a cartoony moment, and that was the one thing. Like this movie is not. I would say it's not cartoony. It's definitely like
Hmm.
an animated feature film. It doesn't feel like a cartoon. But that moment with the huge off switch, I'm like, that is the most cartoony thing ever.
Yep. I looked at that thing and I literally wrote down massive on off switch. That's all I wrote in my notes. I was just like I need to look at that and remember because it was so like because it's all beautifully animated. Also, we should say at the top of everything, this movie is gorgeously animated.
Oh, it's amazing. And the setting too, picking the 50s,
Ooh,
I think was fantastic. All the colors, the fact that it's in New England with all the leaves, it's fall time. They even got like a lot of the dialect. If that's a proper word for it, where like just the way they talk sounds like a lot of the words he said was like from the 50s.
mhm.
I think they call it soda pop or something like that. And a couple other times where I'm like, oh wow, I'm like they really paid attention to detail here. And even before, the other thing I wanted to say, before he went out with his BB gun and everything, I remember as a kid watching that scene when he's home alone, he's watching the scary movie, and he's got the tent up, and he's got the Twinkies, and he putting the whipped cream in. After seeing that, like the next week, I told my mom, get Twinkies and whipped cream, and I tried that out at home. It does not work. It's a mess, Joe, an absolute mess.
Well, yeah, Twinkies aren't actually that elastic. Like they're like sponges,
But
but
yeah,
they're
it's sponge cake.
yeah, it's a sponge cake, so it doesn't expand. It'll just like explode.
But I remember watching that scene as a kid and just watching him put the helmet on, get his BB gun already, and I thought that was the coolest scene ever. I'm like, wow, I'm like this kid is a badass going out there. And even the jacket and everything, like the jacket he had when I was younger, I always wanted that jacket. I thought it was so cool.
Dude, never underestimate a good suit up scene. I love it, and Hogarth just strapping into his 1950s I'm a go adventure apparel. It's mwah, chef's kiss. One of the first YouTube videos I ever made. They're all privated now on my personal channel. But I used to make dirt biking videos with some of my friends who like ride dirt bikes, and so I would take pictures of them because it would be really cool them going off ramps and stuff. But I started to learn how to actually like clip together different bits that I'd recorded. It was using I don't know if you ever had this. There was a YouTube, I think it was called YouTube Studio app, and it was the buggiest piece of shit ever. It
I
was
know what you're
terrible.
talking about. Yeah, I know
Good.
exactly what you're talking about.
For listeners out there who don't know, it's an old app. It's no longer out there. I think because it was so goddamn terrible, or because YouTube just integrated it into the actual website and were like, screw the app. I don't really remember. But I used to take like 5 to 30 second clips that I would record, and I would slap them together and try and edit them a little bit. And the first video that I uploaded, I think it was called like the beginning of the ride or something like that, because I had already had enough footage that I was going to make like a couple of videos, and I was like, oh, I'll like begin this one. It'll be the beginning of something. It'll be cool. And if the video was 2 minutes long, I think the first minute and 30 seconds was my friend doing, it was like I took the video in slow-mo, and it was him walking towards the bike, and then him putting on the helmet and putting on the gloves. And this wasn't one shot, thankfully. It was a couple of different shots that I would then edit together. But it was still terrible, because for 90 seconds you're just listening to the same like royalty-free music on loop as this kid that no one knows is just in slow motion putting on gloves and then strapping on a helmet, and the last 30 seconds is him actually riding the dirt bike. But because the entirety of the video has been all in slow motion, everything in normal motion now looks comically fast, and it happens so fast that you're just like, what the hell did I... It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. But yeah, as I was saying, never underestimate a good suit-up scene. So Hogarth meets the Iron Giant, they become friendly, la-di-da-di-da, story and plot and stuff like that happens. I have two jokes in here that I thought were really funny. The horn honking bit when Hogarth and the Iron Giant go to the scrapyard owned by the Beatnik guy. What's Beatnik's name? Dean. Yeah. So they get to Dean's place and they find the scrapyard, and Iron Giant's just chomping on down on all this metal, and then he picks up the car and it starts honking, and he's just like, Hogarth is like, shut it off, you gotta turn it off, and Iron Giant is just looking, and he just starts beating the car, and then he's like, it's not working, and so then he throws it on the ground and then he sits on it, and I'm like, this is so childish, but it's kind of funny. But the best part was when, and you already said it, just picks that thing up and he's like, "All right, Hail Mary," and he just chucks it, and it's just gone. And I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so funny. That's so good." Like it was at like a 5 out of 10 for jokes for me. I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And then when he chucked it, I was like, 8 out of 10. This is great. I love this bit. And then Dean comes out and he's all like, "Oh, what's going on out here?" And then Hogarth's like, "Oh, yeah, distraction." And then Hogarth drinks a bunch of espresso. And then you get actually some really cool, like, character development sort of stuff almost, where you kind of learn a little bit about Hogarth, and he's kind of a...
Yes, yes, I never noticed it until this time watching the movie.
Right.
And like two things I wanted to say was when I was younger and I learned what espresso was from this movie. And I remember asking my dad, "Oh, can I try espresso?" And my dad was like, "Hell no." Little did he know what my future would entail.
Uh-oh. He tried
I
to
am 50%
stop the
espresso.
flow. Yep, exactly. He tried to stop you from like finding your final form too early. He's like, "No, you're not ready yet. This will destroy you."
But the other thing I was gonna say was what you were talking about. Like you can miss it really easily because of how fast Hogarth is talking. But he's talking he's talking about how he's like a smart kid and the other kids are kind of mean to him. They want him to do his homework or give him the answers, and he's kind of like a little bit of like an outsider, or like a black sheep. And I never picked it up until this time, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, wow. I'm like, so maybe Hogarth really doesn't like have any friends or something like that, because even throughout the movie, he doesn't tell anybody about the giant besides his mom, and his mom doesn't believe him. And so Dean kind of becomes his friend, and I love Dean and his friendship. I think it's so cool. I think it's really, really nice.
I like it because it doesn't feel like... It's not like Hogarth and his mother, where the mom is doing the standard, like, parent thing in movies where they just go, "Oh, you're being too crazy, and obviously that's not real," and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, it's the thing that's been played out to death in movies like this, where it's like boy or child finds outlandish, wonderful thing and
E.T.
can't show parents. Exactly, E.T. is one of the most common parallels to stuff like this. But the fact that Dean also sees it immediately and is like, "Oh, there's a very large robot in my scrapyard," so it's a little hard for him not to be like, "Oh, Hogarth, that's not real," blah blah blah. So it's just very much like, no, you see it, you are in, and that's really cool. And then also the fact that he just doesn't care about, like, he doesn't have any expectations really for Hogarth. He's not like, "Oh, you're a kid, so you gotta be doing kid things." Even he does it a little bit when he's like, "Yeah, you want like any coffee or anything?" And he's like, "I drink coffee." And he's like, "I don't know, man, it's espresso." And he's like, "I said, hip." I love that line delivery. It's so good.
It looks so cheesy when he does it too.
Oh, 100%. And then Dean he doesn't argue. He just shrugs. And then you get the scene where he's high on caffeine. But yeah, Dean is he's really nice because he's just not a dick, essentially.
Yeah.
He's just another good person who's helping out Hogarth, who doesn't really know what he's doing because he has a massive alien robot for a friend. And what do you do in those situations, Joe? They don't teach you that in school.
No,
they do teach you how to avoid nuclear bombs, which is... It's so not true, and it's so funny. It's so funny looking at the
nuke drops and everything around them is destroyed besides them under their desk. Oh my god, I was laughing so much.
Their desks are actually lined with lead, and therefore they will be fine. Don't mind the fact that there's nothing on the four sides of them except a couple of legs. It's totally fine. Totally fine. Because everyone knows
will go around it.
Exactly. Everyone knows explosions only hit you from above, like from the sky down, from up to down. That's how they work.
Like a Pikachu lightning bolt.
Exactly. But not the one in the anime, the one in the games, where the bolt goes up and then the bolt comes down.
And we're not talking about Pokemon games. We're talking about Super Smash Bros. Melee and all the other versions.
Exactly. Yes, precisely. Look at that. We got we got Yu-Gi-Oh, we got Pokemon. Joe, if anyone's playing bingo right now, I mean, we're on a roll. You're very close to. If you haven't already gotten it, you're very close. Wait till we get to Attack on Titan, and then you'll have like the anime bit.
Oh,
Unless that counts right there, then there you go. Also, don't play a drinking game. And if we mention different pop culture things, you will die.
very, very bad.
Yeah. So, back to Iron Giant. After all the nerdy tangents, the other bit that I wanted to discuss real quick also involves Dean, and it is the part where Hogarth takes Iron Giant and Dean out to the lake, and he's just like, "Hey, we're gonna have a fun like swim," and Hogarth jumps in, he's freezing, and it's like, "Aha, funny," and then Iron Giant jumps in, and you're like, "Oh, this is bad," and then he jumps in, kaboom, lots of water everywhere, and that's fine, that's like
Little
kid comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's like when you're younger, you're like, ha ha ha, that's really funny. But I think the funniest part is when he's sitting in the road and the guy drives up and he's just like, "Hey!" And then Dean's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're right in the middle of the road." "Yeah." And he just says it that loudly, and the guy's like, "Okay," and drives around him and keeps on going. And I'm like, that's so good. The writers of this movie,
Yeah,
I applaud you.
Dean's attitude is just hilarious throughout the whole movie. He like gives a fuck but doesn't give a fuck. He's like, all right, like there's a kid, there's a robot. I should probably do something, but like let's see how this goes first. Like I'm not going to be too stressed about it. And another funny moment that I really really liked was when they first introduced him at the scrapyard and Hogarth's like, "Well, he needs a place to sleep and eat," and then just flashes to Dean, and his face just drops, picks up his coffee, dumps it, walks back inside. I was rolling. I thought, but then it gets better. It cuts and then pops up 37 minutes later. Who came up with that number?
I don't know, but it's like it's one of the numbers that I imagine is just it's so specific and so incredibly funny. Also because it's the most bland like time past screen ever. Like I don't know what font it was, but it was the most bland looking
Looked
font.
like a PowerPoint presentation
It
screen.
did. It looked exactly like a PowerPoint presentation screen. Yeah, it's 37 minutes later, and Hogarth's just out to the door. "Please, please, it'll be fine." And he's like, "Go away." "You asshole, you brought this alien to my backyard. I don't want him." God, so good. The humor in this movie is wonderful. Brad Bird, I love you. So, yeah, humor, and then more plot. Kent Mansley being an asshole. When he enters into Hogarth's home, well, not the first time he does, even though it's really funny when he looks at his mom's boobs and he's like, "Hello there," and I'm just like, "Oh, I didn't like that."
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, like as a kid, you probably like that
Flew
fly
right
over my
the
head. Yep. But seeing it now, I'm just like, I'm not thinking like, "Oh no, that shouldn't be in the movie." I'm just thinking, I really don't like this guy.
Exactly. Like he's such like he's not like I wouldn't call him the bad guy. Like he's just doing his job and he's just a loser, man. Like he's just you just want to tell him, "Shut up, man."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is just a loser, but I would definitely call him a bad guy because he refuses to see anything as like himself as wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think he would definitely be and I'm doing more air quotes here for everyone who's listening, bad guy.
They can't hear the air quotes.
Oh, let me do them harder. Hold on, ready? How was that?
I think I picked up a little something.
You did? Here, let me try one more time.
Oh yeah,
Better?
the $35 mics definitely picked that up.
Oh, thank God. Okay, perfect. But yeah, Kent Mansley. Let's do a lightning round of Kent. I'm having another stroke. Holy Christ!
Another one? That's the third
Another
one this
one.
week.
Okay. Another Kent Mansley lightning round edition. We're gonna go over things that just make him a dick. His arrival. It's terrible. I hated him from the moment we started. Now you go.
Decides to call. Oh God, that was not a good one to start with.
It's a lightning round, Joe. Come on.
I
gotta
can't
think.
do lightning.
On your toes.
I'm more like a slow turtle. The fact that he freaks out in the kitchen after his boss makes fun of him for telling him there was a giant metal man.
Mm-hmm.
Starts screaming in the kitchen. Hogarth and his mom are like, "What the fuck?"
What is happening here? Yeah, that was good. I hate the fact that Kent Mansley is such an abusive prick, and he just moves into this Hogarth's home, and he's just spying on him, and it's just like, what are you doing, man? You can't do this. Leave the kid alone.
I hate
He's
how he
such an
keeps
ass.
calling Hogarth, "Hey kiddo, hey sport, hey," and has
Oh.
20 million different nicknames, and I just want to, just hit him.
Hey, sport, kiddo, dude. No, he doesn't say dude. I think he just says like 3, but they montage it over and over again, and it makes me want, like, I'm not a little boy anymore, but if I saw this as a little boy and my dad just out of nowhere, like after the movie, was like, "Hey, sport, let's go," I'd probably like throw a shoe at him. I'd be like, "No!" I just watched the sound of my mic peak there when I screamed no. I'm not going to put in a timestamp for it. It's fine. Everyone will get over it. God, Kent Mansley's such an asshole. The part where he flips the cow oven mitt when he's on the phone with the general, it's like staring at him. He's just like, I don't need you to be looking at me. It's so good.
And like he is definitely a well-developed character too. Like I hate him, but like there's a reason I hate him because they did such a good job with him.
Yes, I will. Yeah, I will agree with you on that. I did do a very good job with him. I was kind of thinking, like, I did a thought experiment where I was like, what if at the end he made the right decision? And this is, I'm not saying it just yet, 'cause we'll get to the ending in a second. But when he grabs the walkie, you know what line I'm referring to. If he had instead like taken pause and then made the other decision, like the more rational decision, I'm like, oh, that would be cool to see character growth, but also I like the fact that he's an irredeemable prick. It's like, cool. We need more of those in kids' movies to be like, hey, sometimes people are just assholes, kids. You gotta learn to live life with the assholes. And by live life with them, I mean blow them up with a massive robot.
Exactly.
That doesn't
and
happen
if you
in this
don't
movie.
have a massive robot, you get one.
Exactly. You just wait.
Eventually, it will fall from the sky. You'll run into him in the woods, and you guys will be best friends.
Exactly, and then you'll find a comically large on-off switch, and you'll, of course, flip it to off, because that would be inhumane to let the robot continue to get electrocuted. And then you have a whole bunch of nice little witty adventures. You find a beatnik, you eat some scrap metal, you play around in a car, you know, the whole dealio.
The ingredients are all there. Just watch the movie, and you'll know what to do.
Exactly. Oh, throw in an action comic every once in a while as well, just to teach him morality or some shit.
I hope that kid held on to it, man. That thing's probably worth a lot of money right now.
It wasn't number one.
But
it
you paid
was-
attention to that.
Yeah, of course I pay attention. It was... Yeah,
he
the
wasn't holding
cover-
the car, right?
No, it wasn't the iconic image of Superman holding the green car above his head. It was just Superman flying in on some screen. I think it was just meant to... If we looked it up, it would probably actually be an issue of Action Comics from the 50s. I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually from, like, 57 when this movie took place, because I imagine they paid close enough attention to do something like that, but it wasn't Action Comics number one. I did pay attention to that show. I got my eyes on lock.
I shouldn't even have questioned it.
You should not have. I'm ashamed of you. I'm going to find another Joe to do this podcast with now.
Damn it.
I'll get one of them out of the closet from the Council of Joes.
Just
You're
like
still
Rick
in
and
there.
Morty with the Council of Ricks.
Shh,
the
no.
Rick-
Shh, this is completely original. Completely original idea. Never been done
yeah.
before.
No copyright, please don't.
No
don't
copyright.
do it. We're broke.
Video gets copyright struck from us saying an idea that isn't ours. Wait, then how do we explain a movie? Uh-oh. Boom. Complete demonetization.
Hit stop recording.
Yeah. Uploads this anyway. Why did they put this up? All right, so Iron Giant, he goes on some. They have some fun little bits. The Kent Mansley finds some evidence at some point in the camera that Hogarth brought on one of the times that he met the Iron Giant. Not important, really, for what we're rambling on about. But the army comes into town, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna see this Iron Giant. Hey, that's the name of the movie." Um, and they find it in Dean's place, and Dean's like, "Ah, yeah, here it is," and it's just like a modern art piece that he made or like threw stuff on top of. And I love the mom, Hogarth's mom, just being like, doesn't need all the other stuff like on top because it looks like it was just kind of slapped on. And while that is a funny bit, Joe, I also have a more meta reading of that. I
Ooh.
think Suits in the company. I didn't do any research into this, so this could be completely BS. But I'm thinking in my meta brain here. I think in the company, when they were designing the Iron Giant, they loved like they made the lovable design of the Iron Giant that we all know and love now. And I think Suits or like higher ups or something like that were like, nah, but like robots are cool and they should have like spikes and flanges and intricate designs. Like it was the 90s when this thing came out. Have you seen Cable? Oh my god. Um, Pouches and pockets everywhere. But so I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually a more meta, like poking fun at the suits higher up who wanted to have a more complex Iron Giant design, and they were just like, "You don't need all this extra stuff. It looks all like slapped on." It's like, yeah, you just need the base design of the Iron Giant, and then it's fine.
I could see that, and I also like how his mom starts complimenting Dean on some of his artwork, and Dean's like, "Oh, you like my art?" And
Oh,
it's like, "Oh, what's starting here?"
mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, nice little bunny. I like they don't slap you over the head with that too. They're just sort of like, here's a
Oh,
little drop,
it's
and then
perfect.
yeah, then that gets wrapped up in the end, which
Also,
we could
they
go.
show. I'm not sure if you picked it up in the house. They were. I'm not sure if they're following Hogarth or somebody, but you see in one scene a picture of a older guy on out in front of an airplane. So I'm pretty sure it's supposed to insinuate his dad was like a in the Air Force.
Oh, that's cool. That would explain. I wonder if the helmet was his father's.
Right, right.
Ooh, okay,
Exactly, man. There's so many little
interesting.
details.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I like that. That's cool. Um, God, this is awesome. I love learning little tidbits. Um, but yeah, so then we go from. I'm trying to like think where I want to go from because like most of the I don't want to like recount every single bit of the movie, but let's just go. Let's just cut to the end at this point where
The giant ran away
yeah.
because we learned that he has defense mechanisms that when guns are pointed at him, he goes full on Terminator mode.
Oh yeah, his eyes glow and then he goes Super Saiyan. No, he doesn't go Super Saiyan. But yes, he goes into defensive mode, fires a laser, um, and then Dean's like, "Okay, you are bad," and he points at Iron Giant. He's like, you bad boy, go by."
And he calls
And
him
then
a
Iron,
big gun. And that's really
yes,
important because the giant has learned that like gun or at least Hogarth has taught him that guns are bad. And
mm,
once he realizes that, he's so confused with himself because he doesn't remember doing it. And I also like the analogy to Superman where it looks like when the giant has the bump on his head, I think it's you would probably agree that it's insinuating he was sent to probably like destroy Earth or something. Oh no! This might be a Dragon
that's
Ball Z
Dragon Ball.
reference. Oh my
Yep.
goodness!
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, this is Goku all over again.
It's
Sent to
Goku,
Earth to
baby.
destroy it. When the alien or whatever lands, hits their head, forgets why they're there, and becomes good. Oh my goodness, that's Dragon Ball Z. That is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Iron Giant, I want to discuss this a little bit after we finish just going over bits in the movie, but I think the Iron Giant is like an amalgam of a bunch of different pop culture characters. Um, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so he like bumped his head, and so he forgot all that stuff, and then Dean is like, "Oh, you're a big gun," and then he's like, "Oh no, but gun is bad, and I'm bad." Oh, and he runs off into
Has a
the
moral
wilderness.
dilemma.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then he's walking along, and the kids, I love it. The kids that are looking around their binoculars, they see him, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's a big robot!" And as they're leaning over, and I didn't remember this from the last time I watched it, but as I was looking at the frame, I was like, "That balcony is way more animated than the rest of the scene," and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna break." And the kids lean over the balcony and it breaks, and I was like, "I'm a genius!" Um, but yeah, and the Iron Giant's like, oh, and he defies all space laws and physics by getting there in like the time it would take for those kids to fall to the pavement, and he's like 200 feet away or something, but he's just like in a single bound. He catches them, and everyone's like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. Um,
There's a giant robot in our neighborhood.
yeah, look at that. A sleepy little town of whatever the town of this place is. I don't actually remember what the name of the town is. Um,
I don't either. I think it was like Newport or something, Maine, something like that.
yeah, it was Maine. It might have been Newport. I can't remember, but not important. Smack it away. Get out of here. But so then, obviously, the military then actually sees him in action. Like, oh my god, we have to attack him. And so they start attacking him. And in attacking him, oh no, it's not in attacking him. Hogarth comes back with Dean and the mom, and they're driving there, and the military stops them from getting towards them, and they're just like, "You can't go in there." And we're like, "You're under arrest or some crap." And Dean's like, "But what about the boy?" And the army's like, "What boy?" And then we find out Hogarth's been dead this entire time, and Dean has been hallucinating. Oh my god!
Oh my goodness.
They
That would have been
sixth
amazing.
sensed us. Oh no! Now, Hogarth is just really fast and is already booking it towards the Iron Giant. And the Iron Giant picks him up, protects him, and when he flies away, we find out he. Oh, by the way, we find out he can fly.
You
Woohoo!
could fly.
Oh my god! And there's a beautiful scene of him flying in the sky, and he puts
I
out his hand like
I never
Superman.
smiled so much. Made my day.
It brings so much joy. I love that. I was just like, oh, it's so cool. And then, oh, but then what follows is not cool. Um, Iron Giant gets shot out of the sky, and he falls. And Hogarth is unconscious, but Iron Giant doesn't know that because he looks like the dead deer they saw earlier. And so Iron Giant's like, oh my god, Hogarth is dead. And the army still fucking firing rockets at his back,
I love
which
how they're
aren't
doing
doing
this with
anything.
like a million civilians nearby, and they're just like, shoot everything.
Oh, 100%. They don't give a shit. They're just like, we just gotta kill this thing. That's all we gotta do. And the Iron Giant at that point is just like, okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy. And then he becomes what in my metatextual brain would be what the suits wanted, and just like Iron Man 2's it. Remember the suitcase suit in Iron
Oh
Man
yes,
2
I
where it like
remember.
unfolds and stuff?
Hmm.
Cool. Got the MCU in there. Ticked that off on the bingo list. Um, and he just unfolds himself, and there's like laser rifles and Doc Ock tentacles and all this other crap just coming out of him and shooting lasers and orbs of energy everywhere, and you're like, uh-oh. And the military is also like, uh-oh. And Iron Giant just goes on a tear, and I mean, oh my god, the military has no chance of stopping him. And so they're just like, okay, um, so we could either die, which would be not poggers, or, or, or we could launch a nuke and kill a whole lot of people, which would also be not poggers, but it would be more poggers than the other thing that I said wasn't poggers either. So, which one do we do? And they think about it for maybe about 2 seconds, and then they're like, yeah, nuclear option seems the way to go.
And it's the
Um,
50s. You gotta go with the nuke. They have just so many of
oh,
them ready to go.
100%. Dude, the amount of like when Kent Mansley was like, it's the atomic age, the age of the bomb, I was just like, yeah, I guess that's right. You guys just created that like a decade ago. So you'd be pretty mesmerized by that. But also it's awful and horrible, and please don't use it on a civilian town. Oh my god.
And I love how
Why
like,
would
the
you do that?
submarine is like just like only a couple miles off the shore of the town, just like this like nuclear submarine. I'm like, how convenient.
I don't know. Yeah, it's funny to think of it that way. I know the ships were off the shore of the town. Was the sub next to them? Because I
Well,
thought all
remember
we
the
saw the
sub
sub was under.
when the sub you actually see the missile go up, and it's like
That's
not
right.
that far away.
Right. Yeah. 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 Okay. I was gonna give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm like, well, all we see is the sub inside, and we just see the missile launch out of the sub. We don't see it. No, but you're right. We do see it launch off the coast of Newport, Maine, maybe, um, where obviously there are plenty of military subs in the 50s because they were waiting to fight off our greatest enemy, Joe, the Canadians.
The goddamn Canadians and their maple syrup.
And their ketchup chips. Oh my god. That's what the Red Scare was all about, Joe. It was about them turning all of our beautiful yellow lace potato chips into horrible red ketchup chips.
Oh my god.
That's what they don't tell you in the history books.
But you learned that here at the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast.
Exactly. We got all the exclusives, baby. Moon landing was real, though. But the Earth is flat. Moving on.
Misinformation.
So, moving on. The Hogarth, yeah, he comes back on through because he booked it out of the car. And so the Iron Giant is just wrecking everything. And he turns his rifle because he hears something, and it's Hogarth. And Hogarth is like, remember! And then Iron Giant is like, no! And then Hogarth is like, please! And Iron Giant is like, okay. And then he morphs back into, normal Iron Giant. And everyone is like, oh, okay, he's calmed down. Everything is fine. Everyone, he's calmed down. If you can see, Hogarth has him under control. He's clearly, got the mind of a child, and he doesn't want to hurt anyone. And everyone is perfectly rational and understands this.
Besides one
and the
man.
movie ends good night. Yeah, no. And then Kent Mansley, the prick. That's going to be my title for him. Just that entire thing is his name now. Kent Mansley, the prick. He's just like, no, he is still a very big weapon. And also, I need to be right. And he takes the walkie-talkie and he's like, fire the missile! And they're like, oh, okie dokie. And they press the big red button and the missile fires. And then the most touching, heartbreaking shit in the movie happens. Oh my god. Joey, explain this. Talk me through this. Because I might actually start crying talking through it.
Well, once the missile is sent, the general turns to Kent. He's like, Kent, do you realize that the missile is targeted for the Giant's position? And Kent's like, yeah. He's like, Kent, where's the Giant? Realizes the Giant's right next to him. He says, screw the country. Jumps in a Jeep, tries to drive away, and the Giant's like, nope, you dying with us all, boy. And I thought that was a perfect way to just that last little bit of comedy. But once you realize oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? This bomb's gonna be coming down, it's gonna go off, and you see all the townsfolk just kind of really nervous, and they're like, oh, this is it. There's no point in trying to hide. And the Iron Giant looks at Hogarth, and he tells him, he goes, I go, you stay. And oh my goodness, it just hit my heart. And you see him go up, and he flies off, his arm up in the sky, and Hogarth tells him he loves him. And as he's flying in the sky, going to outer space, or was it in outer space, or was it in
yeah, he flies out into outer space to
goes
meet
to outer
bomb.
space, and you hear in the background, you choose who you want to be, which is that's the theme of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That you can decide who you want to be. And the last thing you hear is the Iron Giant go, Superman. Boom. Collides with the missile, saves all the lives in the town, and then I was crying so much. And then I just kept crying because they cut, I don't think they tell you the time cut, but they cut at least maybe a year or two later or something like that. That's what I imagined. And in a park in the town, they have a statue of the Iron Giant, and just it really pulls at the heartstrings, man.
It's beautiful, especially because it's the closing of the loop, or the callbacks, I guess would be more appropriate, when he goes, "I go, you stay," which is one of the first interactions that
Hmm.
Hogarth has with him,
Yeah.
and like he says that to him, and it's just, you think about it, and it works so well. Not only because obviously he's like, "I go, you stay," because I'm going to go headbutt a bomb. Um,
It just like you said, makes everything full circle, and kind of it shows that like he learned from Hogarth, and that like he actually
exactly.
had a relationship with him.
Taking the things that Hogarth taught him and then applying them to now, and then saying to Hogarth, "You taught me how to be a good person, and I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to save everyone because this is who I choose to be." And you just, oh, it's so good. I love this movie so much.
And it's such a good ending. Like just it really did just. I was like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. And as soon as he says Superman, the waterworks just came. And I think they just like they couldn't just wrap it up there. Like I liked how they spent like a next like 5 or 10 minutes to more like 5 minutes to just kind of like tie it up perfectly with a nice little bow with seeing the statue. You find out Dean and Hogarth's mom, or I don't know if they're married, dating. She calls him honey, so
I think they're just dating. Also, isn't Hogarth's mom named Susie? I think.
I think so. Is she voiced by Jennifer Aniston, by the way? Because she
Yes.
said, "Oh yes,
Yes,
I
she
could
is.
hear it."
Hmm.
And just seeing that scene, I'm like, "Oh, cool! Like Dean's part of the family now, or whatever. That's pretty sick." And once he gets, and then they get a package from the general that, and it's the little, the screw, from the giant's jaw, and he's like, "Oh, this is the only piece they could recover." And I was like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Wow, like a nice memento." But the movie ends perfectly because, as I showed earlier, when the giant had been hit, what was it, hit by the train, he can fix himself. And the movie ends with Hogarth waking up in the middle of the night, looking at the box and seeing that the screw's gone, and all he sees is the screw tapping on the window that it needs to go somewhere. And it's trying to go find something. And I'm like, oh my god. I remember watching this as a kid being like, no way. Opens up the window, and that screw starts rolling. And the next thing you know, it's in Iceland.
Hmm.
And you see all the parts slowly moving and moving to the giant's head, calling them all together, and then ends.
It's so good. It's so good. Also, I think this is, in my opinion, Vin Diesel's best performance, like ever. Like Groot is like second fiddle. That's the encore. That's the encore to this movie, where Vin Diesel also says like five things. Um, it's so good.
Why is Vin Diesel so good at like making like just grunting or like single word voices and like sounding like just weird animals or robots? Like, I think he's better at that than actually acting like a
It's because
human.
he's a slab of meat. He's just someone, like when God or the universe or whatever you believe in was creating him, or his parents. That would have been an easy thing to say. Um, but I mean, like more like divine intervention here is what I'm talking about, where it's like a divine being was just like, all right, creating this person, and they'll be an artist, and they'll go off and paint something, and I'm creating this person, they'll be an architect, and they'll go off and build something, and then they just have like some leftover stuff, and they're just like, if I make this into two people, it'll be like two really small people. I don't really want to do that, so I'll just smash them together. It's a slab of meat. Ah, all right, and he chucks it out into the
Good
world.
enough. We'll
That's
see
Vin
what
Diesel.
happens.
Exactly. Um, Nothing against Vin Diesel. I'm sure he's probably a good guy. I really don't know anything about him except that he drives a lot of cars, and that's based on Fast and Furious movies that I know he's been in. Yeah, so I think this is his best performance. Just the line, the final Superman line that he says, it's so good, so good.
Yeah, it has so much impact from the movie, and oh man, I just love the movie so much. I like had to reconsider. I'm like, damn. I'm like, is this in the top 5 for me of like ever, like favorite movies ever? And I'm not sure, but I think I would give this. Trying to think how I would rate this against Your Name, because I gave Your Name a 9.5, and it's like, uh-oh.
You already
Why?
started off so high.
I know, I know. I think I'd give this a 9.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I would give this movie. Uh, I'd probably give it a 8 or an 8.5. Let's say an 8 for right now. It might go up. Probably won't go down. But I'm going to say a solid 8. What did I give Your Name? Like a 9?
Yeah, you gave Your Name a 9.
Okay. If I think about that a little bit, yeah, that seems fine. That seems about right. It Numbers are whatever. Numbers are just numbers. It's what we say before the numbers that really matter, Joe.
Damn,
But yeah,
throw that on a t-shirt.
bada bing, bada. Oh, it's on the T-shirt. The quote
Yes,
T-shirt.
it is.
I forgot. We gotta make
Joe,
a.
it's canon. Come on, man. This is a canonical series. You can't watch one before watching the other. People aren't gonna understand. We got the bits that carry on, man.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that'll be on the bit T-shirt. Um, and then we'll package that up and then ship them out. Also, if you order a bit T-shirt and we come up with a bunch more bits, you have to send them back to us so that way we can edit the T-shirts and then resend them back out to you. You will not get sent a new T-shirt, nor can you write the bits onto the T-shirt because remember, they have to be in the same like footprint on the T-shirt, like the same area on the T-shirt. We just have to shrink the font. That's all we got to do. All right. So that was the Iron Giant. One
Joe,
of
I have a
my.
question.
Oh, okay. What's your question?
Did you pick out your movie for next week?
I do believe I have. That's right. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. So I thought for a while about this because I
I love
really
it.
wanted, I really wanted to do either Atlantis or Treasure Planet, and while I think either one of those would be really good, we've done 2 animated movies now, and I'm like, okay, maybe we should switch it up just a little bit. We can go back to animated movies next week if you want to pick that. I don't care, Joe. I don't care. Stop hounding me. Jesus, stop. I said stop. Stop. Oh my. Okay. Dumb bit. Moving on. The movie that I want to do is one of these are going to be a lot of our favorite movies. I'm sorry, that's the way it is when we end up picking them. But this is one of my favorite movies. It is live action. It came out, I believe, in 2016, 2017, something along then. Um, it is. It is. I've actually forgotten the name. Swiss Army Man. There we go. Oh my god.
Uh, and that
I
was so serious. Like, oh shit, I forgot it.
Because I was just sitting there. I was like, "Here's the." Joe. I could picture the thumbnail in Netflix of the movie. I could picture it, the island and the sea, and for whatever reason, the only name that I could see was Your Name. Your Name just infested my brain and then wrote itself over that. I'm like, it's not Your Name. What is the name of this movie? What is the name of it? That's why I couldn't figure it out because I kept saying, "What is your name?" And I was like, "It's not your name, but what is your name? Your name? Fuck! God damn it!" Yeah. So Swiss Army Man is the movie that I want to be doing next week. So stay tuned, and by stay tuned I mean like come back next week for that.
No, it's
Um,
just keep listening to this episode until next week happens, and then
right?
eventually,
Yes.
when this video ends, the next one will just play, and you're like, oh, thank goodness I stayed tuned.
Right. Exactly. Thank goodness I stayed tuned for the next episode. Ooh. Anything else to say about Iron Giant?
No, nothing else to say. I loved just nerding out about it. I loved how I was able to pick up on a bunch of things that I never picked up before. Um, yeah, I love this. Forgot how much I loved it, but definitely something I'm always gonna come back to.
Wunderbar. Okay, so next on the docket, a couple of big things, quote unquote big things, happened in comics over last week. So for those who don't know, at the time of recording this, it is January 11th, 2021. So Death Metal, this is DC Comics I'm talking about. Death Metal has just wrapped up. I remember I was talking about it a little bit last week, and how I said it was kind of a mess, and I didn't like it. Final issue came out. I read it. Still kind of a mess. I still didn't really like it, but it's over now, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. Joe, did you want to hear about it?
Yeah, give me a little spiel,
I'm not
'cause
going to tell you about it.
Okay.
Anyway, it it ended. Wonder Woman punched the Batman, who's a silhouette, and then she shoved him into a star, and he died. And the creators of the multiverses came in and were just like, Wonder Woman, we choose you to ascend to be a god because you're a good person or some shit. And Wonder Woman is now gone, like out of continuity, which is why it will make sense when we talk about a couple of these books, why there's different characters in here. Specifically Wonder Woman. Whoa. But yeah, Death Metal ended. Whatever. I thought of it as a less interesting Doomsday Clock, because literally both of them had two different. Like Doomsday Clock ended with a universe sort of resetting, and they describe something called the metaverse. I'm not going to get into it here. It's really steeped in continuity and nerdy, and you probably don't even have a slot on the bingo card for this shit, so don't even bother.
It's on the back side of the bingo card where it's just all black.
No. That'd be for Dark Knight. That'd be for Death Metal, because that's where that comes from. Dark Knight's metal. Doomsday Clock doesn't even fucking bother with the Dark Knight's multiverse shit. It's terrible. But yeah, so like Doomsday Clock did something really cool and interesting with like a universe resetting thing. Dark Knight's metal or Death Metal, because the original one was whatever. Death Metal did the same thing and called it a omniverse. So I was just like, we just did this with the metaverse. Like, you called it a metaverse. It's like
It's
Jeff
just trying
Johns.
to see how many prefixes they can find.
It really is, but it feels like a dick measuring contest between Jeff Johns and Scott Snyder. Jeff Johns wrote Doomsday Clock. Scott Snyder wrote Death Metal, and it's like they're both kind of like I would call them architects of the DC universe right now. Johns sort of like through the late 90s into the early 2010s even was like the biggest writer at DC. He did Green Lantern Rebirth, Flash Rebirth. He did Flashpoint and started the New 52. And then he wrote Justice League. He wrote the 3 volumes of Aquaman That Matter. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. What else did he write? Most of the stuff that Jeff Johns has written has been like incredible stuff. Lately, he's been trying to tackle really big things, mainly Alan Moore stuff, like Doomsday Clock being a sequel to Watchmen, and Three Jokers being really a sequel to The Killing Joke. But not here to talk about those guys. Here to talk about stuff that's going on now. I'm just giving back history. The moment I start talking about comics, just the history comes out, and it's so bad. There's so many bingo cards that are getting filled up that are just about comics crap, and I'm so sorry. What was I saying? Scott Snyder finished. He's like the Jeff Johns of today. But Jeff Johns is still kind of there, so it's like it's stupid.
Enough politics,
because
Joe. How is Death Metal? Wrap it up.
It's bad. I don't like it. It's pretty bad. I told you all you need to know. Wonder Woman shoves a Batman into the sun, and then it becomes a god.
And that's all I needed to know, and I'm happy
That's
to hear.
all you needed to know. So that initiated Future State. And so, since I have rambled on for far too long, And everyone's probably like, Joe, shut up and let Joe
Let's hear
talk.
the
I will
other
abide
Joe.
you. Exactly. Or the same Joe. Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh. Joe, tell me a little bit about the books that you read for this stuff.
So first, I actually want to tell you a really cool story about when I went to pick up these comics.
Okay.
So first off, my comics were delayed until like Friday afternoon because the UPS or whatever sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But I went and I picked them up from my local shop, and I got the next Batman, which you didn't pick up, but I will say now, I think you should read it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's worth it. And I picked up Wonder Woman, but the thing was, they were all out of the original Wonder Woman, like just normal cover, and I liked that one the most. So I wasn't sure if the other comic shop was gonna have the original cover, so I just went with one of the variant covers. And Joe, what do you think about this variant cover? Ooh, can you see it?
Yeah, I'm trying to take a good look at it. Um,
I think it's kind of cool.
it is pretty cool.
It's a
I
little
think,
weird.
yeah, it's a little weird. I think the design of this Wonder Woman, her name is Yara something or other. I can't remember what her last name is. I think her design greatly helps any artist though because it's such a strong design.
Oh, I love it. I think it's sick.
Hmm.
But so I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of want to get that, the normal like cover. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to the other comic shop, couple minutes away. So I drive over there and I walk in, and when I walk in, I see this guy and I'm like, oh my goodness, and I realize it's my athletic trainer from Arcadia,
Oh,
and he's in there with his little kid, maybe what, like 5 years old? I'm not sure, and they're picking up comics, and
too young. That kid is gonna snot all over those issues, and they will be unusable. This is this is not right.
Joe, I shared the podcast with this guy. We can't be talking crap about his kid.
I will talk shit about this man's kid until the day that kid comes of right age to not snot all over his comics.
Anyway, it was a really cool moment, just being able to see him because he's actually getting a job at somewhere else, but he's a super nice dude, and just got to, like, chit chat to him about comics and stuff, and he was telling me a little bit about how he used to read them when he was younger, and he's kind of just continued, and he's been teaching his kid about them. And Joe, the kid knew a lot actually. He's like, look, that's Link, and he was just pointing out all these characters and running around looking at stuff. It was so cute. He was getting a new Thor hammer because his ripped. He's like, look, I got a Thor hammer, and I'm like, that's
We got
pretty
a
cool.
Thor fan.
Yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. It was just like a good experience, and I was like, wow. I'm like, this made my day. And so I went in there and I got the normal Wonder Woman cover, but then I also picked up Batman Black and White, which came out a couple weeks ago. Um, and the only reason I picked this up is I remember seeing that it was releasing, and I thought the cover was amazing. And the cover was done by one of your favorite artists, Greg Capullo.
I
Uh,
did see that. Yes.
and I was like, okay, even if I don't like the series or didn't understand what was going on, I'm like, I just love the way this looks.
Yeah, just
Uh,
bag and board it, and then just put it up on your wall like I do.
that's what I'll do with the Red X comic. I want to get like 4 of those.
Right.
And so I picked up that, and I also, Joe, I wanted to tell you, I put in an order for Spider-Man Life Story trade.
So good.
I picked that up this week. Oh, I spent way too much money this week. And I also ordered Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Death of Superman, and Blackest
Oh,
Night.
you
So
did?
yeah, so I can have the complete collection.
Did you get the ones that I was talking about on Amazon?
I did. I found this comic store in Texas that has an online shop, and it was like pretty cheap. It was only like $20 for both of them in shipping, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it.
That's better than what I sent you, which was like there was one Death of Superman left, and it was like $20 on its own, and then I don't even remember what the Blackest Night one was. I think it was like $15 with shipping and stuff like that. But yeah, that's great that you actually managed to get those. So now you'll have the completed copy. I have right above me next to just a bunch of my other series, but I have Dark Knight's Multiverse. I have all 10, and I have like on the label that because I got to tape them all up together when they're in the bags and everything.
Hmm.
And I just wrote on the tape, I'm like, Dark Multiverse 2019/2020, just so I know like the years. I like to categorize things.
No, it's cool. It's all about that taxonomy that we learn about in school.
Oh yes, yes. The phylogenetic tree of pastries, if you will.
Oh, what a great reference. And for all those who understand it, which is going to be nobody because it was just the two of
Absolutely
us in
no
that
one.
conversation. Oh, man, that takes me back. But
Mm.
back to comics.
Right.
I'm just I'm going to talk about the next Batman real quickly.
Yes,
And
please.
I'm not it's a like you said before, it's a bunch of it's like three stories, three separate comics in this one. Um and I got to say, um I love the art, and the art's actually done by Nick Darrington, and Nick Darrington did the Doom Patrol, um, that I really really like. So I was super happy to see him in it, and I love the art in it, and I think it's really really cool, um, and I think it's definitely worth it. I think Joe, you should pick it up. Katana is in this, and she is badass. There is one spread page
I
that
was just gonna say I've
is
heard
mind
about
blowing.
this spread page. Show it to me real quickly. I wanna see what I'm missing.
Okay, let
Because
me
this
let me
book is $8, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend the $8,
So
but
here's
if
one really cool one where it's like it's her traveling through like a building, and you can see her moving. Just oh, it's so badass. It is
that
so
is very
sick.
cool.
Once I turned the page, I was like, oh my god. I'm like, she's just going, and you see her like spinning and like it's like something you would see in like Star Wars.
Ooh,
And there's just a bunch of other really cool stuff. Like I think it's definitely worth it. I don't think it's gonna like blow you away, um, but I think it will be worth it. You're not gonna get it and be like, damn, this sucked.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not gonna be like reading the Judas Contract, dark,
God,
dark multiverse Judas Contract, I should say.
have to clarify. But yeah, okay, interesting. I might pick it up. I don't know. I might because again, this future state thing is only going to be like 2 months long, so I might just trade weight it and see if I can just pick it all up together like that. But I'm thinking about it a lot more now.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, definitely. Um, they give you a lot of information in the book, but it's weird. Like you don't learn much about Batman in the book. You learn more about like Gotham in the book and just kind of the setting. Um, and I actually found it super super interesting. There's a bunch of characters. I don't think a lot of them. So the Outsiders and the Arkham Knights are they new or is that reference?
No, The Outsiders are a series that have been going on for a while. They're kind of on and off because they're not like the biggest sellers, but they'll pop up every once in a while. They were in a series. I've seen them a couple of times when I go. I think either it was just canceled or it was canceled a little while ago. I think, but Batman and the Outsiders was a series that was going on, and Arkham Knights. I don't because obviously there was Arkham Knight, the video game, and there's Arkham Gotham Knights is the new DC game coming out in a few years' time. But I don't know about a comic series called Arkham Knights. That might be something more unique. What are the characters in that one?
Wow, it's the leader is Astrid Arkham.
Whoa, who?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I'm not gonna give you any more details than that.
Okay.
It's really I thought it was the coolest part of the book, learning about um, the Arkham Knights, and basically it's a collection of like all like a lot of past villains that Astrid Arkham, who I guess is like I don't know like part of like the Arkham bloodline. I have no clue. There's like little hints about who she is, but basically she has people like Killer Croc and Two Face working for her, and they're like in a superhero getup. Like they look like they, they look like the Avengers, and they're basically trying to take down this private police, like this private law enforcement in Arkham, and it's confusing to try and explain here, um, but basically she's almost trying to like not necessarily reform them, but show that like there's healthy ways for them to use their powers, Like she's not against killing or anything like that. She literally is like, "Oh, I hope this it feeds this guy's bloodlust," and I'm like, "Whoa." But like she literally was like at the end of one of the battles they had, they're like, "Okay, make sure everybody gets in for their therapy session and all this stuff," and I'm like, "Whoa." I'm like, "This is so woke."
Yeah, it's almost like it's kind of like Bruce Banner being like, I can't quite control the Hulk, but maybe I can aim him, and so trying to like be a little
Yeah,
bit
very
more.
very similar. Like just a lot of different and interesting things in this book. I was a little nervous. I was thought it was gonna be a little stupid, but no, pretty damn cool. I would recommend it.
All right,
You want to
cool.
talk
I might
about
end up picking it up.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, I'll talk about both mine real quick because one I have very little to say about, one I have more to say about. Um, so I picked up two. I picked up Swamp Thing from Future State and the Future State Wonder Woman. Um, and the Swamp Thing, I was intrigued by it because I'm a big fan of Justice League Dark, um, and he is a major part of that team. So I was beginning to learn more things about Swamp Thing lore through Justice League Dark series and like the annuals and stuff like that. And it's only two issues, so I'm like, okay, I'll pick up the first one and then I'll pick up the second one, even if I'm not the biggest fan of the first one, because it's like I'm not wasting that much time or money on this. It'll just be cool to have this little two set of Swamp Thing. And I read it, and it's fine. It's like a 6 out of 10 story, I'd say. Uh, that might be partially because it's only going to be like a two-issue thing when it was probably going to be longer, but whatever. And the art was, I'd say, like a 7 out of 10.
Hmm.
Again, nothing to blow you away, but it was good. It was consistent. That's all I need. There were a couple of really cool splash pages in this book where it shows how Swamp Thing creates a body for himself, and it talks about the different types of plants that he would use to create, say, vocal cords or things akin to vocal cords that
Oh,
we
that
could
sounds
actually
sick.
vocalize.
So it's like the
It's
anatomy of him.
Yes, there's one that shows lungs and what plants that he might have used to try and create things that would work similarly to lungs, but instead of air, I believe they move around water for him. So like they pump the water through his body because obviously plants need
Hmm.
water to be pumped through their body, as like air is just kind of all around them, so they can just do stuff like that constantly. And it's like a bigger cast of um, green characters, because the Swamp Thing himself is the avatar of the green, which is like the vegetation force or whatever. And so he's created a couple of other characters. I don't want to get into them because if anyone's intrigued by that, you can go in and learn about them for yourself. They all have their own personality, which is really cool. And there's a little stinger at the end where you're just sort of like, ooh, okay, this is intriguing. So overall, I'd give that issue like a 6.5 out of 10. It's above baseline of the 5 out of 10, but it's just sort of barely above it, where I'm like, I'm kind of intrigued, but not that much. If it was anything longer than two issues, I probably wouldn't bother picking up the rest of it. But for just two, I'll pick up the second. And then Wonder Woman, which, again, I only picked up two
The
issues
only one
this
that we
week.
both read.
Yeah, but I think by far and away, this is great.
Oh,
I
I love
love
it.
this comic. It's
I
so good.
love the way it looks. Like, I'm such a big fan of the art style and the coloring.
Hmm. I believe, yeah, the writer and artist is Joelle Jones, so she does both of those things. And then, let me read the name. Belair? Yeah, Belair on the cover. I don't know the first name, but Belair is the colorist, I'm assuming. It's very good. And part of that is just the character design of Yara.
Hmm.
Oh my god, I love Yara's character design. It's so
I
good.
love it sounds stupid, but like the long sleeves. I think that looks so
Yes.
cool with like the really tight bottom, like, the, and just the metal on everything about it is really really simple, but stands out.
Yeah. I know that there was. I watched like a YouTube video a few days ago just of people talking about future state stuff, and apparently one of the the biggest things about this book in particular and Yara in particular is the fact that they were so willing to just be like thighs, and I'm just like, hell yeah,
Joe's all
because
about that.
all about them thighs.
Chicken thighs too. I love chicken thighs.
And before everything just deteriorates and derails, and we have to can this entire episode.
We then go into Martha Stewart culinary chicken thigh recipes.
So be sure to put flour down first, and then you bread. Anyway,
And then beat
yes,
the meat.
the character design of Yara is just really, really strong, and it's different from Wonder Woman in plenty of aspects with the long sleeves, and there's no skirt of any kind, which has been like a modern Wonder Woman sort
No
of
cape
development.
either, I don't think.
No cape, which is good. Edna mode, no cape. Though you can. I think we mentioned Incredibles earlier with Brad Bird, but if we didn't, Edna mode, check that on the bingo sheet. Yeah, and the gold armor, very nice. It's cool to see that instead of the normal silver bracers and crown or tiara that Wonder Woman normally has. And yeah, the art style of this book is insane. It's so cool. The way that they draw, specifically like background and scenery of like forest and stuff like that, it's really really cool. Especially like the cover of this book. It's just it uses like it has a gradient of color, and then it will use a certain color for inking to like put in like line detail to kind of like differentiate this is a tree, these are leaves, this is the water, and it just works so well because you get all the detail of the background, like it's the implied detail of the scene that they're in, and then you have the wonderfully drawn and colored Yara doing her thing, being a badass and taking out a Hydra. It's great.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was great. I thought it was really funny. I love her personality, because she definitely seems like I don't know how old she's supposed to be in this, like, but I feel like she'd be around like our age. I don't know why, but that's the vibe I get. I'm getting like early 20s, where she just doesn't give a fuck. She realizes all the power she has. She's like, look, don't mess with me. I don't got time. I have things to do. And I just really like her personality because I feel it's definitely different than normal Wonder Woman. And I also love how in the book they talk about her flaws, like, although she is far from perfect.
Yeah, just
And
straight
then-
out say it.
And then rips the little turnstile getting into the underworld. For example.
Exactly. She's definitely a hothead. She reminds me a lot of Korra from The Legend of Korra,
Oh,
where
that's
she's
a great example.
yeah, she's very capable physically, like athletic wise, off the charts. Perfect 20 on her D&D character sheet. Comes to intelligence, pretty low in comparison. But yeah, it's great character. Even if it is like a little stereotypical in that sense. I mean, I don't think it is that much, but
For Wonder
it's
Woman,
great.
I would say it isn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good because Wonder Woman tends to be a lot more cool-headed whenever it comes to her stuff, and so just seeing the inverse of that, someone who kind of leaps without looking first, very cool. I also loved. I'm gonna forget the character's name. The little
Kaipora.
There we go. I knew you were on it and you were looking at it. But yes, Kaipora. Oh my god. I love the chemistry between Kaipora and Yara. It is awesome. And I also freaking love how much that they're using a completely different pantheon of mythology and like gods and stuff like that. It's really, really cool because I looked up what Kippora?
Kaipora, I believe.
Kaipora. I looked up what Kaipora was, and I found out, like, you know, they ride boars. Most of the time they have, like, a pipe or a cigar hanging out of their mouth or something like that, and I was like, that's an interesting detail. So it's just really cool seeing, like, the different stuff that Joelle Jones has been throwing into this, and just seeing the differences. It's like getting it's still a cake. It's still Wonder Woman, but instead of chocolate, now it's vanilla, baby. And you're like, oh man, this is great.
Yeah, I loved Kaipora. I thought she was really funny and their banter was great. Um, and I also love the design of the underworld. I thought it was hilarious. Where I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, this is like a train terminal. I'm like, this is great. Not like some like stereotypical like, oh, we're gonna go see Hades, and it's like what you would see in like a Percy Jackson movie. Like, it's a nice fresh take. And I love having to wait in line for like the little gondola and the skull and the skeleton to come. Like all of it was just freaking hilarious. And there's just so much like unique stuff where I'm like, why did they pick a sumo wrestler to be the person in front of her? Like I'm like, I don't know, but I love it because his reaction when the coin gets stolen from him is the best. He just flips out and it sets it up for the next book of her just causing problems because it's very apparent from this book that she is not hesitant to cause problems or start a fight, and it seems like she's always looking for one.
Yeah, yeah, very very hot headed. So I am very intrigued to see where this goes. I think this is also only a two-issue book. Um, I'm pretty sure it is, which I'm a little.
I'm looking.
I'm looking. I gotta stall while you're looking for the information. So
Yes,
how's
it's
how's
two.
the weather out there? It's
It's
wonderful.
two.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Yeah. So it's only two issues, which I'm honestly sad about. I'm like, oh, I would
Yeah,
read
me
an
too.
entire. I want this to be the new Wonder Woman for a while, but I
That'd be sick.
think, yeah, I'm pretty sure because people have really responded to her. Um, I'm 99% certain they're either working on a series with her, like exclusively, or she is going to be popping up in the actual Wonder Woman title as like a mainstaying character for a little while, which is cool. And because she's also not the only new Wonder Woman, there
Oh
is.
yeah, the immortal Wonder Woman or something like that.
Well, that's the series, the Immortal Wonder Woman, which I think is going to follow Diana after her ascension to godhood
Mm-hmm.
in death metal. But also, there's an African American Wonder Woman in that series. Um, so I think it's going to be like split between the two of them. Kind of like how Batman was like the three different stories. I think this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be two different issues in one, following those two characters. So I'm interested to see that. Honestly, Wonder Woman is like looking to be the most interesting books coming out of this quote unquote event of Future State, and I'm all for that because dude, I've got like 45 Batman books and like 20 Superman books, and Lord, I don't even want to count how many goddamn Green Lantern books I have. Um, I have, I think, one Wonder Woman like trade paperback, and it's one that I got from the airport when the movie was coming out. It was Rebirth Volume One or whatever. Like, I'll read this on the plane. Um, so I would love to get some more awesome Wonder Woman stories coming out of this.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited, even though it is just two issues for this one. I'm excited to read the second one, and just reading some of the stories. I'm like, okay, I was a little hesitant about this whole future state thing. Like the only reason I was really hyped was Red X and Teen Titans. Like that's all I really wanted. But after reading these two, I'm like, you know what? I'm like these stories might be pretty cool. I'm like, might take a risk on it. Maybe I pick one up where it's like, all right, this story was stupid, but it seems like they are trying to do some pretty interesting stuff, and I really like it. Um, and I wanted to ask you, like, like, I don't know. Part of me wants to like be like, I want to pick up all of them, and then part of me also wants to be like, no, I really don't. Like, I didn't really have an interest in the Swamp Thing one, and like next week, I know I'm definitely gonna pick up Teen Titans, or I guess technically this week, I'm gonna pick up Teen Titans and definitely Dark Detective. But I'm on the fringe of if I want to do Justice League, Green Lantern, and Robin Eternal has some interest to me. What are your thoughts on the ones coming out this week?
Yeah, so I'm definitely picking up Teen Titans because I'm interested in reading that with you. Also, the artist on that, a guy named Rafa Sandoval. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. He did a stint on Green Lantern and The Flash. His art style is dope, so I'm excited for that. Um, Dark Detective, I am interested in because it follows Bruce Wayne and what he's become in the future, and also the artist on that, a guy named Dan Mora. He did Klaus, that comic book that I was
Oh
talking
wow,
about.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
the artist on that, so his art is great. He's also doing a comic series called Once and Future right now in Boom Studios. Great as well. And he's just a great artist in general. So I'd love to pick up that book just to see his depiction of Batman and Gotham and all that sort of stuff. Um, so that's Teen Titans, that's Batman, Dark Detective, Justice League, and Green Lantern. I'm gonna pick up Green Lantern just because I'm a Green Lantern chill and I pick up a lot of that stuff. It's only 2 issues, so I'm like, I'll pick this up. And Justice League, I'm gonna pick up number one because I want to see what a lot of these other characters are like without having to buy each of their individual things. And number two, it also has Justice League Dark in there as well. So it's Justice League and Justice League Dark under the title of Justice League, like how the Batman book was 3 issues
Mhm,
and
mhm.
blah blah blah. So those, I believe, those are the 4 books that I'm going to be picking up next week. Um, was there something else that you asked me about in there? I can't remember.
Yeah, so the other thing I was gonna say is I'm pretty sure for the Justice League book, I think Yara, uh, that the Wonder Woman we just talked about is in it, so we get a little
Yes,
bit more info on her, and also, um, the Green Lantern series you started reading last year, I forget
Far
specifically.
Sector.
Yeah, yeah, she's in it as well.
Yes, that's the
So
other
it
thing
seems
that I
like a
saw that
really
made me
cool
intrigued.
cast of characters, so I think I will pick up that one. The one I'm iffy about is Robin Eternal.
Yeah, that one I know nothing about. I haven't looked into it at all. Um, the Yeah, I can't really say much about it. I haven't looked into it at all. But I mean, who knows? So, I don't know. If
Yeah,
anything,
I
just
have to read
wait.
into it. I'm really not sure. It's one of those where I'm like, oh, I'm already picking up like how many do I want to read? And I think I got to do some research on it. But knowing me, I'll probably get there and be like, yeah, why not, right?
Exactly. It's just another couple of bucks. Just peel them out of your
When you can pick it
comically
up
large
and actually
wallet.
hold it, and you're like, $4, no big deal. Oh, it's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why when I go there, I tend to always have like my list of like, okay, these are the things that I am picking up. I pick them up, and then I'm like, all right. And then I'll do like another quick sweep, and I'm like, anything that really catches my fancy. And if there's nothing, I'm like, good, and I go and I buy my comics, and then I go and read them and do it all over again the next week.
And
Um,
also, I was gonna say that this week, the second issue of the Blade Runner series I'm reading comes out, the Blade
right.
Runner 2029. So hopefully, I'm excited to pick that up because the first issue was actually really cool. The art's really sick, and I want to talk to you about that. So I'm excited to pick that up and read that. Um, yeah, it seems like there's gonna be a good amount of stuff this week. And the last thing I picked up this week that I wanted to talk to you about, just for like 1 or 2 minutes, was the Batman Black and White issue. So it, I think it's pretty cool. It's like I think 3 or 4 different stories, um, and all the different art styles. It's a completely black and white book, and some of the stories are definitely, or some of the art is also definitely better than the others. The first story is super super weird. I think you would just like it for how weird it is. I don't think you would actually enjoy it. I think you would just be like, "Wow, this is like the weirdest thing ever." But then there's some other ones where like there's this one female artist, I forget her name, but the way she drew the pages, it mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. Like I'll see if I can show you it a little bit, but can you see this? Like she
Yeah.
does like full pages, and she kind of does it where like um almost like a negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she uses negative space and silhouettes to
Yes.
create
Yeah.
images and scenes.
It isn't like just drawing with black and white color. She actually like thinks of it as carving out space, and that one story alone really caught my eye. And I think the second issue of this comes out either is it next
I
week?
believe it's February.
Oh yeah, maybe the first or second week of February. Um, but I think I'm gonna pick up the second one. This has got me interested. Um, I think you called this an anthology, and obviously I'm a big comic noob. I just kind of mooch off whatever Joe tells me. So could you explain that just real quickly? Like, do you have any idea what this book is like supposed to be? Like, what does it mean?
E- exactly that. It was created. I'm gonna forget by who, but it was a concept that started out in the '90s. I'm pretty sure by somebody, and they were like, "I want to create an anthology Batman book, and put some of the best creators that we have on it, just to tell little stories, and I want to do it in black and white format because at the time, I think the guy who was creating it liked the idea of the black and white idea and like how manga was also something akin to that, and I believe the story went the editors or whoever was in charge that he was talking to about it, they were like, love the idea. Two things. We don't want it to be an anthology series. We don't think it should be in black and white. And he was just sort of like,
That's the whole idea.
so, yeah, so you don't like my idea. Um, then he ended up getting it made. I think the first series was made, it was 4 issues. I don't know exactly when it was. And I don't know if there's been a couple different series in between the first one and this one, but this one I'm pretty sure is a 6 issue series. Um, and yeah, it's weird because I'm pretty sure that one released at some point in December, and I'm pretty sure the next one isn't releasing until February. So it's like there's a weird 2 month wait period, but then I think it's back to like a monthly release schedule. I'll have to double check that at some point. But that's what I think it is. And yeah, so it's just a couple of creators getting together telling Batman stories. I think that's the whole point of it.
Okay, that's really sick, and I think I'm definitely going to continue with it. And yeah, one of the stories is by Paul Dini, and then also I believe the woman who did that page or did that specific story was Emma Rios. I'm not sure if you ever heard of her, but it's
Maybe.
really that was the main thing that kind of stuck out to me. All the other stuff, it was more like, oh, this is kind of like almost felt kind of experimental with the way they were doing it. They're like, oh, just trying to have fun, like, and be creative with it. While hers was just experimental, but also just really just blew me away.
Right. Was there Trad Moore? Was there an artist in there called that?
Yeah, yeah.
His style. It's really like weird organic shapes and things like that. I knew I saw him on it because he worked on Silver Surfer Black. Um, I'd show you that, but I don't have it here. But Silver, like, if you flip to one of the pages, I could be like, yeah, that's his style because his style is so insanely. Um, yep, that's it. 100%. This is perfect for a podcast. Everyone is loving us looking at comic pages. But yeah, so Tradmore's art style is very surreal and a lot of soft organic shapes. So it's like
Yeah.
if he drew a hand, it's like you're looking at shadows and it's really cool, like wacky shadow shapes. It's just awesome stuff. So I believe his name is Tradmore. Look it up as we're talking about all of this. Fill it out on your little bingo card. And then yeah. But so yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to read the rest. And yeah, good week for comics. Next week looks like we got some good stuff, but it's time to hit the meat of it. If you guys thought that we were hype, the hypeness level, I believe my cappuccino was about to kick in at 10:30 at night. Let me not wake up my mom, but Attack on Titan episode 4 of season 4.
5.
5. I
That
blew it.
cappuccino is really kicking in.
Wow. I'm just gonna start this off by saying I think this I mean I think up until this point, this episode I I, I think I want to say it's one of my favorites, or at least close. It had everything. Absolutely everything. I literally like turned off all the lights in my room at like after lunchtime, and I like set up my laptop, and I like made sure nobody disturbed me, and I watched this, and I forgot about everything in the world while watching this. And I just got lost. And between the Iron Giant and watching this Attack on Titan episode in under 24 hours, man, my
Oh
heart's
yeah,
been through a lot.
dude. For me, I watched The Iron Giant last night, same as you, and I had forgotten about Attack on Titan that it had come out,
No.
and well, until after that, like I clicked out of what I was watching it in, and I just opened up like a new tab. And so when you open up a new tab, it's got all the different things that you normally go to, like lined up. Like, where do you want to go? And I saw the Hulu tab, and I was like, holy crap! The new Attack on Titan. Because by the time I finished Iron Giant, it was, I don't know, like 11 p.m. And I was like, oh my god, new Attack on Titan episode! And I I've never clicked into a web browser so quickly, Joe. Let me tell you. And so I go in and it's right there, and you continue watching, and I'm like, episode 5, click yes please. Um, oh my god, this episode is it's the entire thing is build up for the last 30 seconds of the episode, but it is done
It's a
very
tease.
well.
It is
It is.
such a tease. If this episode was a stripper, it'd be a good stripper.
That's a wonderful description, Joe.
Like,
If this was a stripper, it'd be a good stripper.
would take
Yeah.
all my ones easily.
Get the little gun. It's like it's out. It's out in the first 30 seconds. It's all those singles are everywhere. Like I gotta go, you have an ATM somewhere? I gotta go get more real quickly. I'll be right back. Yeah, no, it's the entire thing is taking place basically
Right after
two
last episode.
places.
Right, and
Right after last episode.
right after last episode, they don't no weird jumping around, even though Attack on Titan's known for that. They'll like leave you with a cliffhanger and then jump like maybe like to a completely different location or different characters or but no, they're like we're last season, final season, we are no filler, we are straight to the point, sticking with this, and they start off right where they left off with Aaron and Reiner in a back in a basement.
Yep. They're in the basement, and I'm so happy that they were doing this because in the first 3 episodes, you never see a, or is it the two? First two or three, whatever it is. You don't see anyone from Paradise Island. Like, you don't see Aaron, you don't see Mikasa, you don't see Arwen, or Jean, or any of them. I remembered all the names, Joe. I didn't even have to. I just want to
You
call
said
attention to that.
Armin, it's Armin to be precise.
Good. Damn it! That's fine. Everything's fine. I was close.
We have to re-record the whole podcast.
God damn it! Joe, let's get back in the closet. Taking the headphones off, and we gotta do the thing again. That's what we gotta do.
Oh my god.
Hang on, I gotta put my
That's-
headphones
that
back on. I
sounded-
can't hear you.
That sounded really good.
Oh, wonderful! I just chucked my headphones onto my desk. Where was I? Basement, but not Aaron's basement. We're in a new basement on a new continent. Uh, so it's just they left us off in the episode 4 where we finally have the confrontation between Aaron and Reiner. Like he's talking to Falco, or Aaron's talking to Falco, and he's like, "Yo, go get Reiner. I was actually a friend of his from long ago." And Falco's all like innocent and cool, and he's like, "Oh, it's cool. I'm gonna go get your friend and bring him here." And when Reiner walks into that room and makes eye contact, it's like it's like someone took the thermostat and was like 60 to 69 to now let's just turn it down to 50, 40. How low does this thing go? Ah, yes, negative 110. Good. We're just gonna set it all the way down.
Oh my, it gets everything freezes, and you can just, the tension, and you can see it in Reiner's face, which I love. You can see just what he realized, like, oh my god, something bad, like, this, I was not expecting this, like, this is going to be huge, like, what is happening, and you could see all the crazy thoughts just rushing through his head, and Falco's just over there smiling, like, oh, look at me, I did a good thing. And I love how calm, cool, and collected Aaron is, because Aaron isn't like that. He's the dumb, reckless hothead, and he's like, hey, Reiner, long time no see. It's been 4 years. And I
And it's
love, because it's normally, it's the opposite way around. Reiner's like the mature one trying to control Aaron. And oh my god, he tells him to sit down. And I'm like, wow, there's a million thoughts rushing through my head. Falco's starting to realize the atmosphere in the room just changed a whole lot. Like, what's going on? And it starts, and then it cuts back to, I believe his name's Willie, right? Willie Tiber,
yeah, William Tiber.
giving his speech to the people of Marley and all the people from overseas who came to visit to hear his great speech. And that's where this episode takes place. It takes place technically in two locations that are 10 feet away from each other.
Right next to each other. One's just a little bit lower.
And, Aaron and Reiner get to talking, and Reiner's just mind blown. He's like, how did you get here? Why did you get here? Like, what happened? And Aaron starts talking about, their relationship and how he's trying to understand Reiner and how, oh, I thought when I got to the ocean that I would have to destroy all you guys over here. But ever since coming over here, I've learned about you guys. I've lived with you people. And you can see just Reiner's face kind of being like, oh, maybe Aaron understands now. He understands the mission, like gets the plan. But then Aaron is also listening in to Willie's speech. And you learn that more of the history of the world has been falsified and hidden. That Halos, the great Marleyan who, drived out all the Eldians, never existed. And that King Fritz is really the one that just wanted peace. I almost said pizza.
He just wanted a goddamn pizza. Was that so much to ask for? I mean, come on.
Yet.
Uh,
And that I found that mind blowing, because I'm like, yes, I'm like, I really like that. I'm like, hell yes. I'm like, I think King Fritz is one of the most interesting characters, and you don't even really see him. He's like this pseudo character.
well, he is dead.
Yeah. But the whole, I'm trying to say the sense of like, how like the person who carries on like the founding Titan or whatever is supposed to be like, oh, he has to carry out like the wishes of King Fritz, that it was like, oh, he wanted peace and didn't want to declare war, so anybody who receives the founding Titan can't do it. That's kind of what I mean. Like, I know he's dead, but it's just weird how strong of a presence and how large of an impact he has on the story. And it's like we barely get to see him or don't know that much about him. And I want you to tell me a little bit more of like, Joe, when do things start to heat up a little bit in this story? Because it gets cool, and you're like, okay, like there's a lot of dialogue going on, a lot of build up, but you get a feeling of when the pot starts to boil.
Right. And so the pot, I think, really starts to boil when first the pot starts like simmering a little bit when the Marleyan guard comes to get two of the Titans.
Yes.
I don't remember their names, but it's the Jaw and the what's the one that carries them on the
carrier?
Yeah,
Titan,
the carrier Titan.
I think that's it.
Yeah, it's the woman and the Jaw Titan. So Marley Knight, you never see his face. They do the shadow trick where it's the shadow over his eyes. He comes, gathers up those two and leads them away. And they're just sort of like, all right, what's going on here? The carrier Titan woman is kind of like, I'm a little suspicious of what's going on here right now. I don't quite know what's happening. And they're led into a building, and the Marleyan guard cuts a rope. The floor falls out from beneath them. They drop like 30 feet into this tiny pit. Yeah, which is clever. There's a quick line about it where they say it's a Titan trap almost, because if anyone were to transform, they would just crush themselves to death, sort of a thing. So they can't do anything to get out of it right now. So they're off the table, and I'm like, oh, something's about to go down.
Motion. Yeah.
Exactly, because I was thinking like you, where when Aaron was talking with Reiner a little bit, and he was saying about how he had lived with the Eldians and seen that there are both good and bad people, both on Paradise and in Marley. An obvious example of that is Falco. Like Falco is an Eldian. He's training to be one of the warriors, but he's a good person. He doesn't want war. He's trying to become a warrior so he can save one of the other warriors in training because she obviously is like, I'm gonna die for my country, hurrah! And Falco's just like, no, like you have way more to live for, sort of a thing. And so I think that's incredible to have Falco still present there for this confrontation between Aaron and Reiner, two people who are at one point very different and now incredibly similar. And I
And that's what they
thought,
talk about. They talk.
yeah,
Aaron's making a point of like, oh, like I always thought I was different from you, and he goes, I realize, like, oh, we both have like the same goals and everything, but you continue on.
right. They have the same goals. It's just their goals, while the same, are to do some not nice things to each other's people.
Hmm.
Um, and the part where he reveals that his hand, he's already cut his hand, so he's like, I can transform at any moment. And he points up, and we're in the basement of a civilian like town's home. Like there are just apartments of civilians all the way up. And Reiner is just sort of like, I will do whatever you say. Just don't do anything too rash. And they have the conversation, and they're sort of figuring out, or Reiner is sort of figuring out what Aaron's kind
Motive.
of end game motive is right now. And there was a point when they were talking that I thought maybe Aaron had come originally to wreak havoc and has since changed his mind. And I thought that would be incredibly interesting for them to go down that route. But instead, um,
He
things
talks about
continue.
what his comrades. He also mentions when
Right,
Falco's asked,
yes.
like, oh, who were those letters going to? It's like, oh, they were going to my comrades. And
Hmm.
Reiner kind of his eyes bug out. He's like, comrades.
Yeah, so obviously there are other Paradise Island natives now in Marley, which, if anyone saw the promotion art or the season's poster, you would have known that because you would have seen them. But it's cool to see Reiner for the first time kind of realize,
It's not just
uh,
him.
yeah, exactly. And then Aaron asks him, oh, no, he says you had no choice in what you were doing, sort of a thing. And that's when Reiner breaks down because the
Gets on
reality
his
is,
knees.
yeah, he falls on his knees in front of Aaron and he just is crying and he says, no, I am a monster because I had the choice. We had the choice. We could have turned around and gone back once the kid was eaten by Ymir, or whatever the heck that person's name was.
Hmm.
And they're like, we could have turned around and just not gone. But and Reiner's exact line was, I wanted to be a hero. I wanted to be respected. And because of that, he and the Colossal Titan took down the wall in season one, kicked off all of this bullshit, and Reiner is directly responsible for everything that is happening right now, and he knows it, and he is torn up inside about it. And like one of the previous scenes in the previous episodes of season four, when he puts the gun in
Oh,
his mouth and he's about to
oh
blow out his
my
brains.
God. I'm surprised we didn't talk about that. That was huge. I literally was like, oh my God, like, whoa. I'm like, talk about character development. I'm like, did not know that was going on in Reiner's head.
Yeah, no,
And that
Reiner
was
is.
all because of the idea of them being sent to paradise again.
Yeah,
He's like, oh, I'm not going back to that hell.
yeah, he can't go back, and it's not so much that it's a hell in the sense of like it's a terrible battlefield. It's like an
The mental.
emotional,
Yeah.
psychological hell for him.
Hmm.
Like he can't rationalize going back there and fighting, like, and face, not even fighting, facing those people again. So the fact that he's all of a sudden facing Aaron in his homeland, I think just wrecks him psychologically first. And then after Reiner has talked about or confessed that they didn't have to do it, but he wanted to be a hero and be respected by his people, and that he's responsible for why Aaron's mother died. Then Aaron extends his hand to him and helps him back up to his feet, and while holding his hand, says the line. God, I might butcher it. Well, it was something along the lines of, I keep, like you helped to teach me, I keep moving forward. And then he says, until my enemies are destroyed. And it's the close up of his eye, and it's glowing. And my stomach actually dropped when I saw that.
Me too. Me too. My heart rate increased. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. It's like the top of the roller coaster, and you're just about to drop.
Tick 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 tick, and you're at the crest, and you see what's about. That's the thing, because then the next scene plays out, or the next shot plays out, and it is the electricity forming around him of the Titan changing, and Reiner in slow motion turns to grab Falco, and it's like you're at the top of the coaster, you see where you're going, and you're just, oh god,
the point of no return.
Yep. And just like that, Aaron transforms into a Titan just as William Tybur says his declaration of war, and the attack Titan bursts out of the civilian home, killing hundreds of people probably in that transformation sequence. And then, in the most bitch slap I've ever seen, smacks William Tybur into the pavement and then launches him into the sky. And with the launch of Tybur and a ferocious roar, the episode ends. And you're just like, oh shit.
It's the whole episode leads up to that moment. You're like, oh my goodness. You're like, everything's in movement now. It's like, this must have been a 4-year build-up. And I hope we get a little more, like, almost like a flashback to, like, how it happened. Like, how I don't know. I just want so much more from this. Like, I love it. And they give us so much. But, yeah, when he finally just transformed and fucking destroyed that building, you see bodies flying. There is actually, when you see the rubble fly into the crowd, you see a slow-mo shot of rubble hitting this one dude's face and blood just gushing. And did you watch the after credits thing where they give the little, like, intro into the next episode?
No, I never watched the intro into the next episode stuff. Tell me nothing. Tell me.
Can I tell you the title of the next episode?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All I'm gonna say,
because I can think about it and extrapolate on it. I don't want.
Okay, I'm done. I won't.
Nothing. I won't. Keep it to yourself. Joe, you know I love you. I appreciate you very much.
I have self-control.
Okay, good. Okay, so that is. Oh, it's so good. Attack on Titan season 4, final season.
I just feel like each week we go to talk about stuff, man. Like, it's just gonna get better and better. Like, we're never gonna run out of stuff to talk about. This was the perfect time to get this podcast back. It really is. Like, you and I both have great taste in movies. We're gonna jump back and forth.
Let me just say, we have the best taste in movies.
The only taste in movies.
Exactly.
Between that, all these new comics coming out for the new year, Future State is going to give us a good 2 months of material to talk about. And also, the fact that Attack on Titan's back. Like, honestly, we could have a whole separate podcast for that. Like,
we probably could.
All off a 20-minute episode.
It's so good. It's so good.
Everything was perfect. And I love in, what was it? Oh, this was the other thing I wanted to bring up. So once they realized that some of the warrior titans are gone and they send that search party, and they open the door, I'm pretty sure the search party opens the door to the room where Aaron and Reiner were, I think. Is that
correct? They don't even open the door. They just walk down the stairs, and then Aaron transforms, and you just see the light coming out of the door, and then it just explodes, and they're all dead. Like, they don't even get to open the door.
Oh my god, I'm so excited for next week.
Yeah, it's coming out next week, right? There's no break?
Yeah. The reason the break last week was because of the New Year.
Right. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Give them New Year's. That's fine. But now, bring it, baby. We are like this. This is really like the entire all 5 episodes are that build up of the roller coaster, and then this episode was peaking over, and we've just begun the actual like descent into madness with the end of episode 5. So I am incredibly hyped for all the following episodes and what they've got going and prepared for us. I'm so excited. So good.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I am pumped. But I think, Joe, we're over the 2-hour mark again.
Ah, god damn it.
We just like talking to each other too much.
We do. It's too much. We gotta
be able
render
to do
and export.
plenty of talking because the Joes are meeting up for the first time in 2 months.
Hell yeah! God, I'm so excited for that too. I wonder if we should we do a content thing at that point? I don't know. We'll talk about it when we get together. Not on the podcast. We'll talk about it later.
I
Okay.
think that's perfect. Well, Joe,
Yeah.
we talked about a lot today.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Iron Giant.
Yep.
We talked about the first slate of future state comics. And
That
talked
we
about
did.
The brand new Attack on Titan episode that is absolutely amazing.
Can
Next
confirm.
week, we got Swiss Army Man, which I've never seen before, and I'm excited to watch.
I'm very excited for you to watch that. I'm very excited.
We got some great comics coming out this week, and who knows what the hell's going to happen in this Attack on Titan episode.
So good. I can't wait. You have an inkling, but I have nothing, and I like going in with nothing. So it's a wonderful spot to end it. So I just want to say, Joe, I fucking love you, brother. Can't wait to see you later on this week. And to everyone who's listening, thank you for listening. This has been Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe, episode 12. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see you next week for episode 13. And yeah, love you all and have a very good night. Mwah.
Drink coffee and live well.